Do you think the presence of evil is kickstarting people to wonder about the good?
That's what happened to me.
That's what happened to you?
Oh yeah, I had a direct experience with it.
In the milieu of journalism or just?
Nope, in my bed at night, and I got attacked while I was asleep with my wife and 4 dogs in the bed and mauled. Physically mauled.
In a spiritual attack by a demon?
Yeah, by a demon.
Hello there, my friends. It is I, your boy, Mr. X Dreams. I'm coming to you today with something new, something different, a new format, a different idea. And as you guys know, typically I'm talking about experiences that people wrote me about, emails, phone calls, family stories, things like that. And it's very rare that something pops up in the mainstream media type of environment that something like this happens, where a story comes out that is so similar to the type of content that I typically used to put out in the heyday of my channel. And I felt like I would be remiss if I didn't comment on this story. So Tucker Carlson, as you all know, is a right-wing political figure, used to be a normal everyday news type personality. But he's risen in the ranks of the conservative political world. As with most conservative right-wing media and personalities online, there's an increasing amount of overtly religious opinions and even political positions. I wanted to talk about this because there's an interesting intersection with my typical content here, a nexus, if you will. When someone tells me a story, I listen, I take it in, and I analyze it. I sort of critique it in a way, give my opinion. I'm going to do that with Tucker Carlson's story right now. And I hope you'll find this interesting because I do this type of thing for the average everyday person who just writes me an email about an experience that they had. I'll tell the story. I'll discuss possible rational explanations for it. Or, I mean, if there's something that's legitimately hard to comprehend or hard to put into a box of mundane happenings, then I'll admit that too. And I haven't seen or heard the full story of this interview with Tucker Carlson, during which he's saying that he was attacked by a malevolent entity, a demon, if you will. I haven't seen this all yet, but we're going to watch it together, and then I'm going to provide my commentary and my feelings about this. So I hope you'll come along for the ride here. Let's get back into the video.
Or by something unseen that left
Is that right?
claw marks on my sides, on my...
So it left physical marks.
Oh, they're still there. Yeah. Year and a half ago.
Was your wife terrified? I know you were.
I wasn't. I was totally confused. I woke up and I couldn't breathe, and I thought I was going to suffocate. And I went and flipped on the light in the bathroom, and I had 4 claw marks on either side underneath my arms and on my left shoulder. And they're bleeding.
Wait, they were bleeding?
They're bleeding, yeah. No, they're actual claw marks. And I sleep on my side, so I wasn't clawing myself. I don't have long nails. And they didn't fit my hands anyway. But yeah, that happened.
Okay, I kind of see where this is going. I'm going to watch the rest of it and see where it ends up. If there's anything else relevant to our conversation here, then we're going to take it back and look at it piece by piece, at least for the relevant story portion of it. In this particular case, I'm not going to be doing a retelling of the story because it was pretty light on details, and that's going to play into my interpretation of this story as well. If anything, I'll just fast forward it and get back into the explanation later. Okay, so several relevant details came after that, and we're going to go through piece by piece and examine this very extraordinary story for a public figure, somebody who is highly favored in certain political and media circles right now. It's a really interesting series of claims to make, and I don't know what his motives are for making this. Well, I do know what his motives are for making this story public, and that does have to factor in to the way that we interpret this and the way that we consider its legitimacy. So I'm going to go ahead and say off the bat that this story smells of bovine excrement. You'll see exactly why that is if you haven't already. And I'm usually not so harsh when examining these types of stories. Back in the days, way back in the days, I would kind of just take everyone's word for what it was and just sort of buy into it and play along. But as you know, if you've been following me this whole time, I really don't do that anymore. I'm more analytical, and I'm more trying to help people understand what is most likely really happening when they're experiencing things like this. So let's look at this a little bit more granular level and talk about it.
Yeah, I had a direct experience with it in my bed at night, and I got attacked while I was asleep with my wife and 4 dogs in the bed and mauled.
Okay, so typically when someone tells me, and I keep saying this, but if you've watched me long enough, you know I'm being consistent here. When someone tells me that they had a supernatural or paranormal experience, the first thing I ask is, okay, where were you when this happened? What was your state of mind? If the person tells me I was in bed, or I was laying down on the couch, or I was heading to bed, that's a red flag. That's red flag number 1, and it's almost always followed by a series of other red flags that make the situation more difficult to believe. So off the bat, Tucker Carlson is saying that this experience happened while he was dead asleep. So if you have an experience when you're asleep, 9 times out of 10, maybe even 999 times out of 1,000, it's just you had a nightmare. But once in a while, someone wants to make more of something than it is. They want it to be more sensational. They want the world around them to be more intriguing and more mysterious and fascinating than it really is. Sometimes the fact is people just have intense nightmares. But he goes a lot further than that with these claims. So let's continue.
Physically mauled.
In a spiritual attack by a demon?
Yeah, by a demon. Or by something unseen that left.
Is that right?
Later in the video, as you saw, I'm not sure if we'll go back into that part, but he said that he was basically not really, he didn't really grow up with these presuppositions about Christianity and the world of demons and evil spirits and stuff like that as seen through Christian lens. So it makes me wonder why he would by default say, oh, this was a demon as per Judeo-Christian terminology and beliefs. It's really weird to make that presumption in a world where there are so many different cryptids to choose from. You know, it could be an old hag, it could be the Hat Man, it could be a shadow person, it could be whatever that little golem dude was that sits on people's chest during sleep paralysis. And you know, as a fellow sleep paralysis veteran, I can attest to the varying number of entities that occasionally rear their ugly heads in these scenarios. And I guess the Christian would probably say that all of those things are demons and they're all really there. But the skeptic, myself, would say these are just different cultural aspects of things that go bump in the night that we're accustomed to visualizing. And that's why occasionally when our bodies are waking up and they're too inundated with neurotransmitters that prevent your body from moving too much when you're sleeping, you can hallucinate and you can see and feel and hear things that aren't really there and aren't really happening. And no, you're not being besieged by otherworldly entities. You're just having a nightmare. And if anybody's disappointed to hear me say that, I'm sorry, but that is the most plausible explanation for things like this.
Claw marks on my sides, on my...
So he left physical marks.
Oh, they're still there. Yeah.
Okay. So if I was telling a story, a fantastical, difficult to believe story about being attacked by an otherworldly entity, and I had physical claw marks on my body, I would be lifting my shirt right now and showing those wounds. Because think of what credibility would be added to your story if you were to do that. I'm sure it's pretty cold there. He's wearing like a jacket, a vest, flannel and all that stuff, but couldn't bust out those scars, those wounds to bolster this incredible claim that you're making. I mean, for the average person, the more intense your claim is, the more intense your evidence needs to be. At least that's the way I think people should approach these types of claims. But let's see if this gentleman lives by that code.
A year and a half ago.
Was your wife terrified? I know you were.
I was.
He goes straight from, hey, I've got these scars. And the dude, instead of saying, wow, word, let me see them. Let me see those wounds. I want to see what a wound looks like that was left by the claws of a literal demon, which was somehow obviously not physically present with you, but was able to injure your body. I want to see that. Where is it at? Instead of that, he says, oh, wow. I hope he's thinking in his head, so you have wounds underneath your clothes right now, even one on your shoulder that you can just like shift it over and I can see it right now. Okay, I'm not interested in that though. I don't want to know anymore. I've just heard something that I have been assuming or I believe already, and you're confirming it, so I don't really need to go any further than that. I don't need to ask any more questions. I just want to know, were you and your wife terrified? Which is the least relevant possible thing to ask in this hard-hitting interview situation. It's almost as if people just want to be told that their beliefs are correct. They don't want to ask the questions to poke holes in their theories. If only someone had a YouTube channel where people could learn to ask the right questions. I don't know. I mean, maybe you should look into that. Anyway, let's continue.
I was totally confused. I woke up and I couldn't breathe and I thought I was going to suffocate, and I walked around outside, and then I walked in and my wife and dogs had not woken up.
So this is something I can identify with very directly. First of all, he says he woke up. So this happened while he was asleep. So like I said, red flag number one. Number two was that he refuses to show his miraculous wounds. But he was talking about the sensation of suffocating and not being able to breathe. If you saw a video I made a long time ago, many years ago, called The Freezing Man, this entity that I saw repeatedly during multiple progressively worse episodes of sleep paralysis. Every time I saw this being, it would be walking down the hall towards my room, and my entire body would be frozen solid to the point where I couldn't breathe. And I would literally pass out from a lack of oxygen, like I would black out. And then later I would wake back up again in my bed. That always happened while I was in bed and while I was asleep. I would be kind of woken up from my sleep and then experience this suffocation event. A guy like this, he experiences this and he assumes, oh, this is a traditional Christian demon, I guess. And it just so happens that he reveals this experience at a time where support from the Christian community is more important to him than ever before. He's leaning into this extremely heavily, as talks of him running for president one day, or talks of him getting more and more involved in the American political system are starting. So red flag number three, why is he saying this? He's definitely going to benefit. Flip this whole story and this whole endearing himself to the Christian community into millions upon millions upon millions of dollars on top of what he already was born with and on top of what he already has received from Fox News and other ventures that he's done using his popularity. So long story short, this is bullshit. I'm not going to hold y'all, but if you want to continue, let's go. I'm still interested. I still have a few more things to say. Spoiler alert. That's what I think about his story right now.
Very light sleepers. And then I had these terrible pains on my rib cage and on my shoulder. And I was just in my boxer shorts and I went and flipped on the light in the bathroom, and I had 4 claw marks on either side underneath my arms and on my left shoulder. And they're bleeding.
Wait, they were bleeding?
Take a look at his posture and his the look on his face right now. I'm not an expert in body language or, I did watch that one show, Lie to Me, back in the day. But if you were to guess that, you look at this picture, the guy on the right has just said something to the guy on the left. Look at the guy on the right's posture. Look at his facial expression. Look at his body language. And you tell me if it seems like someone who is honestly baring his soul and telling his truth. The way that he says...
And they're bleeding.
Wait, they were bleeding?
They're bleeding, yeah. No, they're actual claw marks. And
I don't understand how anybody believes this story because the way that he's saying it is the way that I would have told us a made-up story when I was 10. He has this childlike air of deviance to him in the way that he's communicating this story that, an in-person interviewer should 100% have picked up on this and at least said, okay, I'm having trouble believing this because of the way that you're acting and the way that you're speaking. Can I please see those wounds that you've mentioned now for the second time? And this interviewer gentleman is just eating it up. He's not asking any follow-up questions of substance. Even when I was really into the whole thing and doing interviews and stuff like that, I did ask some questions and I did challenge people and offer explanations for their experiences that sort of fall into the mundane, everyday, non-supernatural, non-paranormal realm, which I believe is the explanation for almost every type of strange event that occurs with human beings on this planet. And if you can't tell, my views and my opinions have changed over time. But the way this interview is being conducted it's so clearly a form of propaganda that I struggle to even take it seriously. But let's continue.
And I sleep on my side, so I wasn't clawing myself. I don't have long nails. And they didn't fit my hands anyway. But yeah, that happened.
That's another thing. He keeps making these claims that he could easily prove right now in the middle of the interview. Look at this. This is where the claw marks are. And look at my hands. My hands are this big. The claw marks are twice as big as what my hands would be. He doesn't do anything, and the interviewer doesn't ask him to. So why would he put himself out there and out himself as being a complete bullshitter when he could just make a claim and say what he wants to say and get the support of the Christian community as a result? I would imagine the money that he's going to get as in all the opportunities that are going to follow this type of thing. This video has 500,000 views. People are talking about it all over the internet, myself included. And that notoriety, it translates to money for him. It's really a no-brainer to look at this and understand why this is happening and why this interview took place and why it went the way it went. Now, I might wake up tomorrow morning and Tucker Carlson is posting pictures of his open wounds from a demon attack. And at that point, if I were to see that, I would say, okay, now we have a story. Now we're talking. This is interesting. Let's investigate this further and understand how he might have gotten these wounds. That doesn't mean that we would jump to, okay, well, demons are real. So then obviously the next step is if demons are real, then one out of hundreds of religions that mention demons also must be real. But at least with this story, there would be credibility, there would be some form of evidence for something supernatural or paranormal happening, and that would increase the value of this content 1,000-fold. But the fact that something so simple and easy was not done in this moment is very telling, and it does not bode well for the credibility of the story.
So I'm not from a world where things like that happen. I never heard of anything like that happening before. I had no idea what that was. I knew it was spiritual immediately.
You did?
I had no idea what that was. I knew it was spiritual immediately. And I knew that my first instinct should be to go and call my Christian sister. When I hear stories like this, I look for inconsistencies and logical issues with the narrative. Certainly a big one.
Okay, that was going to be my question.
Yeah. I don't understand to this day. I'm not going to put it.
You didn't try to refute the spiritual part in your own mind. You went right into the
Well, it
idea.
didn't make any sense, and it doesn't now. But I'm not from a, what do they call it, faith tradition that talks about things like that or even acknowledges their existence. Like, there's nothing like that. I've never heard anybody say anything like that in my whole life.
What was the next?
What is he saying? That he never heard anyone say in his whole life that demons exist? Is he saying that he's lived, how old is he? 55 years on this earth, and he's never heard of someone having an encounter with a demon? I mean, there's movies. I know he's rich and he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth and all that stuff, the Swanson family dynasty and all this stuff. But I'm sure he's seen movies, right? And he probably does this all the time with all kinds of talking points, but he's just trying to fill the air. He's trying to just keep talking and keep sounding interesting. But if you're not listening really, and you're not analyzing and being critical of what you're hearing, then it probably sounds just fine. But if you stop to actually hear what he's saying, it's like, okay, you never heard of demons before?
It acknowledges their existence. Like, there's nothing like that. I've never heard anybody say anything like that in my whole life.
What was the next
Never
day
heard
like?
anybody saying
Well, the next
anything like
morning
that
I
in his
woke
whole
up
life.
and I thought that was the weirdest dream I've ever had. And then I saw blood on my sheets and I realized that was not a dream at all.
Okay, that's like the fourth thing that he could easily prove. Here's the bloody sheets. My wife took a picture of them with her cell phone. I posted a picture of my bloody sheets that when I woke up after being attacked by a demon, I took a picture of it and put it on Twitter. Or I saved a picture in case I wanted to use it later or to prove that I was attacked in my sleep. Why doesn't he have this stuff? And why doesn't he present it? So bizarre.
So I called my assistant, who was like the only evangelical Christian I know, well enough to call with something bizarre like that, totally bizarre like that.
He calls his assistant because she is an evangelical Christian. And somehow, even though he's never heard of demons before or people being attacked by demons in his whole life, he instinctively knows to contact an evangelical Christian, having never heard about anything like that in his entire life. That is an extremely big plot hole in his story.
And she said, oh yeah, no, that happens. Yeah, people are attacked in their bed by demons. What? What are you even talking about?
Okay, I'm going to ignore his insane laugh that has been commented on by many people. It sounds like this person that he called, his assistants, who just said, oh yeah, demons attack people all the time. It happens. That person probably has a lot in common with this interviewer guy. Look at the smile on his face. He's very happy to hear about another person who's completely bought into the idea that people just get attacked physically by demons in their beds all the time unprompted. It's comforting when people share your beliefs, but the way that they arrive at these beliefs is by listening to people and not asking the right questions in response to their claims. If you never ask and you never are curious about, okay, well, how can you prove the validity of your story? Where's your evidence? Does what you're saying make logical sense whatsoever? If you don't ask any of those questions like that, you're going to end up believing a lot of really incredible things. And by incredible, I mean not credible.
I'm not leaving anything out, and I'm not pretending to understand that. I can only say what happened to me, and that did happen to me. And then I was seized with this very intense desire to read the Bible, which I then started without any.
And now we see the moment coming full circle here. The objective of this entire interview and story that he's telling is that this brought him to the Christian religion. This encounter. Most people don't need to be physically attacked and lacerated in order to become religious. It's not often the case. And if that was the case, I mean, I would imagine occasionally we would see some photos of people with severe wounds that refuse to ever heal. And they would be giving this testimony publicly because they want people to understand and believe as they do. And according to his evangelical assistant, this happens all the time, but somehow we don't really have proof of it, which is another red flag. What is that, number 5, 6? I don't even know.
I was dead asleep with my wife and dogs, and I woke up with claw marks on my rib cage underneath my arms, and it didn't even make sense. My arms would, anyway, whatever. No one has to believe me, I don't care.
It doesn't matter.
But that happened to me, and so.
I'm glad you don't care if people believe you or not, because I don't believe you. But the real issue is most of the people who watch this documentary called Christianities on the Orthodox Ethos channel, I believe that's where it's actually located. Most of these people, they're going to believe you because they don't need evidence. They don't need any information to convince them. They're already convinced and they already believe that this is a thing. So I'm not quite sure what else I could even say about this at this point. But I am ready to ask you a question. What do you think about this story? And let's quickly list the evidence that he has at his disposal, but doesn't use. Number 1, you've got the most obvious one, physical claw marks that have been there for a year and a half. Number 2, he could take his wife on camera right now, or have her make a post and say, hey, yeah, I woke up in the middle of the night. I don't know what happened, but my husband has all these claw marks all over his body, and they're still there to this day. That would be irrelevant, obviously, if he was to just show the claw marks. Number 3, bloody sheets that were just in the middle of a peaceful night. Now all of a sudden sheets are covered in blood. That would be an interesting piece of evidence, but he didn't provide that either, as far as I know. And like I said, if he comes online tomorrow and shows all this evidence, we're really going to have a good conversation. But you can't have a good conversation if you're claiming all these things and you're not willing to actually produce them. So what do you think about all this, my friends? That's what I want to know. If you really want to know more about asking the right questions, do me a favor, send me an email and let me know. And I'll send you a link to another channel that I'm doing that's all about asking the right questions, particularly in a from a religious standpoint. I don't typically like to mix these two channels together, but there's something about this story and this video and this person that I'm covering right now that really made me want to just do a little plug for my other channel. It's just getting off the ground right now, but if you're interested in this type of thing and you like challenging your mentality and your worldview, and you're not afraid to do so, especially if you're a current or former Christian, you might be interested in checking that out. And I don't just want anybody to come over though, just people that are really interested. So that's why I'm not putting a link directly to it. If you want to know about it, send me a DM. But anyways, my friends, I hope you enjoyed this rather different approach to a video. Never done this before on this channel anyway. This is kind of more the style on my other channel. But yeah, I wanted to talk about this with you guys and see what you had to say about it. So let me know down in the comment section below. Make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I hope you're all well. I hope you're doing great and having a great day. Hope your life's going well. And I'll see you all again soon because I have some new stories to read for you. And I'm also going to be playing some horror games on live stream sometime in the near future as well. So anyway, I'm Mr. X, and may your nights be full of dreams. I'll catch you later, my friends.